What are some signs someone has had a hard life? Before we start with the first story, please hit a subscribe and ring the notification bell to stay updated with us. Number 10. They tell you a story they think is funny, and it's actually just trauma. I worked with a guy who was colorblind. He was telling me about how his dad used to beat him when he'd have trouble with identifying the color of an object, all while laughing heartily. A guy was telling me he respected his dad because his father ate first at every dinner, and if you even tried to eat before him, you got your ass kicked. Said it like it was something to be proud of. I was like, dude, you didn't respect your dad, you feared him. There's a huge difference, my guy. Number 9. People who, when shown kindness, literally don't know how to take it. My ex was like this. He couldn't accept gifts or help because he said he didn't want charity when it was just a friend gifting or helping out a friend. He also had a big rule about not doing any kind of business or sharing or helping with family because he and his dad had been f***ed over by family so many times by their family members. He just didn't get how my family was so close and took care of each other when needed without asking anything in return, and how we had trust with each other that when we said we would do something, we'd actually do it. Thankfully, he seems to be making this different with our son. Number 8. Staying unnaturally calm in situations when everyone is jumpy. Being somewhat indifferent most of the time. Remain unresponsive to little harm. These can be associated with other character types as well, but those who have seen a lot of hardship usually act this way. Edit. All of a sudden it turned from us sharing our ideas about people who have faced hardship to all of us connecting to all the other comments. Edit. Going through all the comments is kinda therapeutic because not only everyone's saying what they are but also explaining why they are that way. We survived, guys. We always will. Totally, but weirdly at the same time, situations that are normal for most people are really hard or anxiety-producing. Car accident, swaddle person, bad drug trip. Cool as a cucumber. Need to call the insurance company, talk to HR or file taxes? Please no. Number 7. Trust issues. Scared to get close to people/push people away, not fazed by situations that bother other people. Over-explain things. Come across as mean because they are trying to protect themselves from getting hurt again. Number 6. Apologizing for everything they do. Apologizing when someone reacts negatively to their over-apologizing, then apologizing again for apologizing. Yep, my father could knock over a glass or burn his toast, and unless I apologized while cleaning it up, even if I was in another room at the time, it would result in a massive anger explosion that sometimes got physical and was always verbal. For the first 25 years of my life, prior to recognizing my over-apologizing in therapy, I would apologize for everything under the sun, including people saying something like, "Oh, I wanted to go out for a walk, but it's raining." It was super annoying of me, and actually, in hindsight. Number 5. They don't realize that they've had it so hard because they are used to diminishing their feelings. This one is me. Also, traumatized people tend to struggle to identify real feelings in themselves. There seems to be a mind/body ghosting effect with emotions. Logically, they know what those feelings are, but find it hard to connect/label them. They tend to want to avoid the confrontations of life because they have been on edge or hyper alert their whole lives. It's exhausting to always feel on, and sometimes they feel they have to fake it till they make it. They don't react to big things in the way normal people would. This is again a diminishment of feelings, but somehow the little things trigger them instead. This is also me. Traumatized people go on to develop disorders like anxiety and depression in adulthood, and tend to have physical ailments such as stomach issues, muscle pain, headaches, etc. They find it very hard to show their true selves to others for fear that, yes, all those negative things they think about themselves are indeed true. They tend to go it alone and not need or want help. They may even struggle to identify if they need it. They do not wish to be a burden to others and will go out of their way to be useful. This is me too. That's just some from my experience. I have childhood trauma, sexual assault at 5. I grew up and was raised in a household of a depressed mother who was physically there but emotionally unavailable. I had weight issues and poor self-esteem, and I had a constant need to run away or isolate myself. I was parentified in my mid/late teens with my mother. My father had an affair and left us. My mother died soon after, and yada yada yada. I had never dealt with all my crap, and it hit me right in the face years later. I had a huge emotional episode and was diagnosed with GAD. I started counseling for everything, and I went on medication for about 2 years. The first thing I replied to my counselor when I told my story and she said I had a hard life was, "I don't feel it was that bad, and others had it way worse than me." But I learned so much about myself in those 2 years of counseling. And I learned some great tools for coping with life. Unfortunately, my GAD is lifelong and stomach issues are also visiting me, suspected IBS. But I am in a really good place today. But because of everything, I will always feel a little abnormal and alien-like, and have to work harder at living my life. Those are sadly the breaks you get in life. But yeah, those behaviors I mentioned were just some of the things I noticed can happen. Number 4. I think there's 2 different types of responses. People can have both and display these in different situations, or sometimes people turn out more like one or the other when people have a hard life. This is the most typical one, but when people are overly cautious and find it hard to trust. They may be very stoic and hyper-independent. They may not open up at all. Sometimes they may be overly helpful. B. Very wise and never quick to judge others. They treat people with grace and reserve criticisms, as they understand that people can be experiencing hard times themselves and act as the person they wish they had toward others. You missed the third type that adopted a victim mentality. C. Constantly thinks everyone wronged them. Everything in their life is someone else's fault. Everything is worthy of a buttload of tears. Constantly telling everyone how life is super unfair and this person and that person is being mean to them. Type C drives me up the walls, and I tend to cut them out as soon as I find out they're like this. Grow the f*** up. Number 3. They don't whine and ask for help when things are hard, they just deal. They don't assume people like them or take basic goodwill for granted. Being obviously vulnerable feels dangerous, and they'll conceal it rather than complaining. If you show them you're a real one, you move up in their personal hierarchy, and they see you in a different light after that. Number 2. People who face tough times might show signs like being very cautious or guarded, struggling to trust easily, or having a strong sense of independence. They might also have a deep empathy for others' struggles. It's very hard for me to ask or accept help. I raised my sister since I was 9 years old. Cooling everything for us, making sure homework was done, getting to bed on time, you name it. I'm just used to me doing things that I'd rather just do it than inconvenience anyone else. It's hard to explain. Difficult feelings. My wife looked at me like I had 10 heads a few months ago. She told me she had asked our neighbor, him and his wife are our really good friends, if he could help me carry a large rocking sofa chair upstairs and a treadmill into our basement. I immediately panicked and managed to carry the sofa up the stairs and the treadmill into the basement by myself. Asking for help growing up was a good way to put yourself in a position to be manipulated in the future. My parents would always say, "I helped you with insert any small task, the least you could do is insert highly inconvenient task for me." Or was used as a way for them to say, "You know I did everything for you." List things parents are expected to do in order to guilt my brothers, and I ended up forgiving them for being horrible. To me, any form of help is a great way to put yourself in emotional debt. So I refuse any and all help. Number 1. 2 sides of the same coin. They can be compassionate and empathetic because they've walked in those shoes, or they are harsh and overly critical as a defense mechanism. This is so true. I worked with a lady who was a complete so to most of our coworkers, including me, until she saw me crying in the kitchen one day and asked me what was wrong. Turns out she had similar life experience to me and turned into a completely different person with me from then on. Alright folks, that's a wrap. Thanks for joining us today. If you like more of this, please hit a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. You can also share your own story or thoughts in the comments below. We love to hear from you. I'll see you in the next video.